In the heart of the Thar Desert in India lies a village shrouded in mystery and fear. Kuldhara, once a thriving community, now stands as a haunting testament to the unknown. Picture an entire village, bustling with life, suddenly abandoned overnight. The once lively streets now echo with silence, the homes left to the mercy of the desert winds. What could drive an entire population to vanish without a trace? As the sun sets, casting eerie shadows over the dilapidated buildings, whispers of a dark and sinister force begin to surface. A curse, they say, one so powerful that it condemned Kuldhara to an eternity of desolation. This is not a tale of simple superstition, but of a palpable terror that still lingers in the air. Join us as we unravel the chilling story of Kuldhara, delving into its haunted past and uncovering the secrets that forced its people to flee. Is it merely legend, or is there a horrifying truth waiting to be discovered? Prepare yourself for a journey into the unknown, where the lines between reality and the supernatural blur. Welcome to the cursed village of Kuldhara. The abandoned village. Kuldhara. A name that echoes through the annals of history as a place of beauty, prosperity, and inexplicable dread. Nestled in the arid expanses of the Thar Desert, Kuldhara was once a flourishing village, home to the proud and industrious Paliwal Brahmins. Known for their intelligence, trade acumen, and unparalleled architectural skills, the Paliwals turned this arid land into a vibrant community. Prosperity flowed through its streets, and life thrived under the relentless desert sun. Yet, today, Kuldhara stands in stark contrast to its illustrious past. Walk through its abandoned lanes, and you are greeted by an eerie silence. The stone houses, now mere skeletons of their former glory, seem to whisper tales of a life abruptly halted. The wells, once brimming with water, are now choked with sand. The air is thick with an unsettling stillness, as if the village itself is holding its breath, guarding a dark secret. The mystery of Kuldhara's sudden abandonment in the early 19th century has puzzled historians, intrigued locals, and terrified visitors for generations. One fateful night, as the moon hung low and the desert winds whispered secrets to the sands, the entire population of Kuldhara vanished without a trace. They left behind no sign of struggle, no clue to their destination, only the haunting emptiness of their homes. Legends speak of a malevolent force, a curse so powerful that it drove the villagers to flee in the dead of night. Some say it was the wrath of a vengeful spirit, others believe it was the sinister machinations of an oppressive ruler, whose unspeakable demands pushed the villagers to make a desperate choice. Whatever the cause, the villagers left in such haste that they took nothing with them, abandoning their homes, their belongings, their very way of life. As we embark on this journey into the heart of Kuldhara's mystery, let us remember that this is not just a story, but a chilling testament to the unknown. The truth of what transpired that fateful night remains buried beneath layers of fear and time. So, join us as we peel back these layers, one by one, and uncover the dark and disturbing secrets of the abandoned village of Kuldhara. Keep your mind open and your heart steady, for the journey ahead is fraught with fear, apprehension, and ambiguity. This is not for the faint of heart. Welcome to Kuldhara, where history meets horror. a flourishing community. Asterisk. To truly understand the eerie transformation of Kuldhara, one must first picture it in its prime, a thriving village, a beacon of prosperity amidst the unforgiving sands of the Thar Desert. The Paliwal Brahmins, renowned for their ingenuity and resilience, crafted a life of abundance here, defying the harsh elements with their unmatched skills. In the golden days of Kuldhara, the village was a mosaic of bustling streets, vibrant markets, and beautifully crafted homes. The Paliwals built their houses from sturdy sandstone, each structure adorned with intricate carvings and adorned facades. These homes, arranged in neat rows, bore witness to the villagers' devotion to order and beauty. Lush green fields, nourished by a sophisticated irrigation system, surrounded the village, providing a bountiful harvest that fed not only Kuldhara but neighboring settlements as well. The heart of the village was its market square, where traders from far and wide would gather to barter goods. The air was filled with the melodious chatter of vendors selling spices, textiles, and jewelry, while children played gleefully under the watchful eyes of their elders. Life in Kuldhara was one of harmony and contentment, the rhythms of daily life punctuated by the sounds of work, play, and prayer. The Paliwal Brahmins were deeply spiritual, their lives interwoven with rituals and festivals that honored their deities. The village temple, a magnificent structure dedicated to their patron god, was the focal point of communal gatherings. Here, the villagers would offer prayers, celebrate festivals, and seek solace in times of trouble. The sound of temple bells and chants resonated through the village, a constant reminder of their faith and unity. Education was highly valued in Kuldhara. The Paliwals ensured that their children received a comprehensive education, imparting knowledge of scriptures, mathematics, and the arts. The village school, a modest yet vital institution, was a place of enlightenment where the young minds were molded for a prosperous future. Yet, beneath this facade of prosperity and peace, there were whispers of unease, subtle signs that something was amiss. Animals would sometimes refuse to enter certain parts of the village, their eyes wide with fear. Elders spoke in hushed tones of strange shadows that seemed to move on their own, and of an inexplicable chill that would sometimes grip the air, even in the height of summer. As the sun set each day, casting long shadows over the village, an eerie quiet would descend. The laughter of children would fade, and the bustling market would fall silent, as if the village itself was holding its breath. It was in these moments, as darkness fell, that the first tendrils of fear began to creep into the hearts of the villagers. Little did they know, these were the harbingers of a night that would change Kuldhara forever. Join us in the next chapter as we delve deeper into the mysterious events that began to unravel the fabric of this once thriving community. The seeds of dread had been sown, and soon Kuldhara would find itself ensnared in a web of fear and uncertainty. This is the story of how a flourishing village began its descent into darkness. Asterisk. The arrival of the threat. Asterisk. As the days turned to months, the shadow over Kuldhara grew longer, darker. The once vibrant village, full of life and laughter, began to change. The signs were subtle at first, almost imperceptible, an unnatural stillness, an air of foreboding that clung to the village like a shroud. It started with the animals. Dogs that once roamed freely began to cower in corners, their ears flattened, eyes wide with an unspoken fear. Livestock refused to enter certain areas, their agitation palpable. Birds, which had once filled the skies with their joyful songs, now circled high above, reluctant to land. The villagers dismissed these signs as mere quirks of nature, but the unease had taken root. Then came the dreams. Night after night, villagers were plagued by visions of a shadowy figure, a specter, that hovered at the edge of their consciousness. It appeared in different forms: a dark, hooded figure standing at the edge of the fields, a pair of glowing eyes watching from the darkness, a whispering voice that called their names. Each morning, they awoke drenched in sweat, their hearts pounding with an inexplicable dread. They spoke of these dreams in hushed tones, afraid to give voice to their fears, but the tension was palpable. The first tangible sign of the supernatural threat came one fateful evening. The sun had set, and the village was settling into its nightly routine. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream pierced the air, sending a chill down the spine of every villager. They rushed to the source of the scream, only to find a young girl, trembling and incoherent, pointing towards the well. Her eyes were wide with terror, and she could barely speak. When she finally managed to form words, she spoke of a dark figure that had emerged from the depths of the well, reaching out with long skeletal hands. The villagers were skeptical, yet unnerved. They inspected the well, finding nothing but the echo of their own voices and the cold, dark water below. But the girl's fear was real, and it planted a seed of doubt in their minds. That night, no one slept peacefully. The fear that something dark and malevolent lurked among them began to take hold. In the days that followed, the supernatural occurrences became more frequent and undeniable. Doors that were securely latched would swing open with a violent force, objects would move of their own accord, and an eerie disembodied whisper could be heard in the dead of night. Children spoke of shadowy figures watching them from the corners of their rooms, and the bravest of men found themselves frozen with fear at the sight of flickering lights and ghostly apparitions. The village elders gathered, their faces lined with worry and fear. They performed rituals and sought guidance from their deities, but the malevolent presence seemed to grow stronger with each passing day. The once tight-knit community began to fray at the edges, suspicion and paranoia creeping into their interactions. Neighbors who had once been friends now eyed each other with distrust, each wondering if the other was somehow connected to the dark force that had invaded their lives. As the supernatural threat loomed ever larger, the villagers of Kuldhara found themselves trapped in a waking nightmare. Their peaceful existence had been shattered, replaced by a relentless, suffocating fear. Little did they know, this was only the beginning. The true horror of Kuldhara was yet to be revealed. In the next chapter, we will uncover the terrifying events that led to the curse that sealed Kuldhara's fate. Join us as we continue our journey into the heart of darkness, where the lines between the living and the dead blur, and the only certainty is fear. Asterix. Strange happenings. The village of Kuldhara, once a bastion of peace and prosperity, was now gripped by a growing sense of dread. The eerie occurrences that had begun as whispers in the night were now undeniable, forcing even the most skeptical to confront the reality of the supernatural threat that had taken hold. As days turned into weeks, the accounts of paranormal activities became more frequent and more terrifying. Villagers spoke of shadows that seemed to move of their own accord, dark shapes that slithered along the walls, vanishing as soon as they were spotted. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, filling the air with an otherworldly hum that frayed nerves and shattered sleep. One night, a farmer named Rajiv, known for his bravery and skepticism, encountered the unexplainable. While checking his livestock, he saw a faint light flickering in the distance. As he approached, The light grew brighter, revealing a ghostly figure. Rajiv tried to call out, but his voice was caught in his throat. The figure turned, revealing hollow, glowing eyes that seemed to pierce his very soul. Paralyzed by fear, Rajiv could only watch as the figure slowly faded into the night, leaving him trembling and unable to speak of what he had seen. Then there was Mira, a young mother who woke one night to the sound of her baby crying. She hurried to the nursery, only to find the crib empty. Panic-stricken, she searched the room, her heart pounding in her chest. She found her child, unharmed, lying in the center of the room, surrounded by strange, glowing symbols etched into the floor. The symbols faded as she watched, leaving her with a lingering sense of dread and questions that had no answers. The villagers began to see apparitions, ghostly figures that would appear and disappear without a trace. They spoke of cold spots that would suddenly chill the air, and objects that would move on their own, defying explanation. Tools left in one place would be found in another, doors would slam shut with no wind to move them, and eerie, disembodied laughter would echo through the streets at night. The fear and paranoia within the community grew with each passing day. Neighbors who once trusted each other now eyed one another with suspicion, wondering if someone among them had brought this curse upon the village. Accusations flew, tempers flared, and the bonds that had held the community together began to fray. In their desperation, the villagers turned to the elders, hoping for guidance and protection. The elders performed rituals and sought answers from their deities, but the malevolent presence seemed impervious to their efforts. The feeling of helplessness was overwhelming, and many began to lose hope, believing that they were being punished for some unknown sin. The final straw came when the village temple, the heart of their spiritual life, became the epicenter of the paranormal activities. Sacred idols were found desecrated, their once serene faces twisted in agony. The temple bells rang of their own accord, filling the air with a cacophony of sound that drove the villagers to their knees in terror. One night, the high priest, a man of unwavering faith, was found unconscious at the altar, his hair turned white from shock. When he awoke, he spoke of a vision, an ancient curse that had been awakened, and a darkness that sought to consume them all. As the community's fear and paranoia reached a fever pitch, the realization dawned that they could no longer stay. The once thriving village of Kuldhara was now a place of torment and terror, and the only option was to flee. But where could they go, and would they ever be free of the curse that haunted them? In the next chapter, we will recount the harrowing night when the villagers of Kuldhara made the fateful decision to abandon their homes and seek refuge from the darkness that had consumed their lives. Stay with us as we continue this journey into the unknown, unraveling the mysteries of Kuldhara's cursed fate. The curse unleashed. As the village of Kuldhara teetered on the brink of despair, the atmosphere grew thick with an almost tangible dread. The daily life of the villagers had become a waking nightmare, overshadowed by the relentless presence of the supernatural. Yet, amidst the chaos and fear, the events leading up to the curse remained shrouded in ambiguity, spoken of only in fearful whispers. Legend has it that the origin of the curse lay in a tale of forbidden desire and unrelenting tyranny. Salim Singh, the powerful and ruthless minister of the region, had set his eyes on a young girl from Kuldhara. Her beauty was unmatched, and her spirit unyielding. Salim Singh's desire for her grew obsessive, and he demanded her hand in marriage. The villagers, known for their pride and sense of community, refused to comply with his demands. In retaliation, Salim Singh threatened the village with unbearable taxes and punitive measures, vowing to bring Kuldhara to its knees. The Paliwals, steadfast in their resolve, chose to protect the girl at all costs, even if it meant inviting the minister's wrath. But as the days passed, they realized that mere defiance was not enough to escape his vengeance. In their desperation, the villagers turned to an ancient ritual, a forbidden act meant to invoke a powerful curse upon their oppressor. The high priest, with a heavy heart, led the ritual, knowing the darkness it would unleash. They gathered in the temple, their faces etched with fear and determination, and invoked the curse, calling upon the ancient spirits to protect them from Salim Singh's cruelty. But in doing so, they unknowingly bound their fate to the dark forces they had summoned. The night of the ritual was eerily calm, the air thick with an unnatural stillness. As the villagers chanted, a cold wind swept through the temple, extinguishing the flames of the oil lamps. Shadows danced wildly on the walls, and a chilling presence filled the room. The curse had been cast, but the consequences were far greater than they could have imagined. The dark forces they had called upon were not easily controlled, and the curse began to weave itself into the very fabric of the village. The days that followed were marked by escalating terror. The supernatural occurrences grew more frequent and more violent, as if the spirits themselves were exacting their price. The villagers realized too late that they had unleashed a force beyond their understanding, a force that would not rest until Kuldhara was abandoned. The pivotal night when the village was abandoned was one of sheer panic and despair. The supernatural activities reached a fever pitch, doors slammed shut with deafening force, windows shattered without cause, and ghostly apparitions appeared in every corner of the village. The air was filled with a bone-chilling cold, and the once familiar surroundings became alien and hostile. The final blow came when the village temple, their sanctuary, and the heart of their spiritual life, became a focal point of the haunting. The sacred idols were found desecrated, their once serene faces twisted in agony. The temple bells rang out a cacophony of discordant tones, driving the villagers to the brink of madness. The high priest, now a frail shadow of his former self, collapsed at the altar, his eyes wide with a terror that could not be put into words. Realizing that they could no longer stay, the villagers made a fateful decision. Under the cover of darkness, they gathered what little they could carry and fled their homes. It was a silent exodus, a desperate bid to escape the malevolent force that had taken over their lives. They moved in solemn procession, their hearts heavy with grief and fear, knowing that they were leaving behind not just their homes, but their history and their way of life. As they left, the high priest, with his last ounce of strength, invoked one final blessing, hoping to protect the village from further desecration. But the curse had already taken hold, and the village of Kuldhara was left to the mercy of the dark forces that now ruled it. The villagers disappeared into the night, leaving behind an empty village, a place where time seemed to stand still, and where the echoes of their lives lingered in the silent ruins. In the next chapter, we will explore the aftermath of that fateful night, delving into the stories and legends that emerged in the wake of Kuldhara's abandonment. Join us as we continue to unravel the mystery, seeking to understand the enduring curse that has haunted Kuldhara for generations. The aftermath. The village of Kuldhara, once a haven of life and prosperity, now stood abandoned, a ghostly relic in the heart of the Thar Desert. The dawn that followed the villagers' exodus revealed a haunting silence that pervaded every corner. The air was heavy with an oppressive stillness, and the desert winds seemed to whisper tales of sorrow and dread. As news of Kuldhara's sudden abandonment spread, curiosity drew people from neighboring villages. They came in small groups, compelled by a mix of intrigue and fear. What they found was a scene frozen in time, a village seemingly untouched by the passage of life, yet marked by an unsettling presence. Homes were left exactly as they had been, with cooking pots still on fires long extinguished and tools scattered as if dropped in haste. The marketplace, once vibrant and filled with the hum of trade, now lay eerily quiet, its stalls abandoned mid-transaction. The wells, once a source of life, now seemed like dark, bottomless voids, and the fields lay fallow, overtaken by the relentless sands. Among the most chilling sights was the village temple. Once the spiritual heart of Kuldhara, it now stood as a silent testament to the horrors that had unfolded. The desecrated idols, their faces twisted in agony, seemed to watch over the empty village with a malevolent gaze. The temple bells, once a symbol of harmony, hung silent, their echoing chimes replaced by an unnerving quiet. Those who dared to explore deeper spoke of a palpable unease, a sense that they were being watched by unseen eyes. They recounted feeling an inexplicable chill, even under the scorching desert sun. Some claimed to hear faint whispers, disembodied voices that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Others saw fleeting shadows at the edge of their vision, only to find nothing when they turned to look. Stories and legends quickly began to circulate among the neighboring villages, each more terrifying than the last. Some spoke of vengeful spirits, cursed to wander the ruins of Kuldhara for eternity. Others believed that the village had been consumed by a powerful dark force, one that had driven its inhabitants to madness and despair. The tale of Salim Singh's obsession and the villagers' defiant curse became central to these legends, a cautionary story of pride, desperation, and the dire consequences of invoking forbidden powers. One particularly chilling story told of a group of travelers who, unaware of the village's dark past, decided to camp within its borders. As night fell, they were tormented by terrifying visions and unearthly sounds. In the morning, they were found by villagers from a neighboring settlement, huddled together and muttering incoherently, their hair turned white from shock. They spoke of ghostly figures that had surrounded their camp, their eyes glowing with an otherworldly light, and of whispers that promised doom should they not leave immediately. As the legends grew, so did the fear and superstition surrounding Kuldhara. It became a place to be avoided, a cursed land that no one dared to reclaim. Even those who were skeptical of the supernatural found themselves uneasy at the thought of venturing into the abandoned village. Kuldhara's name became synonymous with dread, a reminder of the thin veil that separates the living from the dead. Despite the fear, a few brave souls continued to visit Kuldhara, driven by a morbid fascination. They left offerings at the temple, hoping to appease whatever spirits might dwell there, and spoke in hushed tones of the village's tragic fate. Yet, no one stayed long, the oppressive atmosphere driving them away as surely as the villagers had fled that fateful night. In the next chapter, we will delve into the modern-day investigations and the attempts to uncover the truth behind Kuldhara's enduring mystery. Join us as we continue to unravel the layers of fear and legend, seeking to understand the true nature of the curse that haunts this forsaken village. Echoes of the past. The story of Kuldhara did not end with its abandonment. Over the years, the village has continued to attract the curious and the brave historians, paranormal investigators, and thrill seekers, all drawn by the promise of uncovering the truth behind the curse. Yet, each visit has only deepened the mystery, leaving behind more questions than answers. In the decades following the abandonment, Kuldhara became a forbidden yet irresistible destination. Early explorers and subsequent visitors often found themselves overwhelmed by an inexplicable sense of dread. They spoke of an oppressive silence that blanketed the village, broken only by the faint whispers of the wind or something far more sinister. One of the earliest accounts came from a British officer stationed in India during the late 1800s. Intrigued by the tales of the cursed village, he decided to spend a night there, hoping to debunk the superstitions. His journal, discovered years later, recounts a harrowing night filled with unexplainable phenomena. He described ghostly apparitions, disembodied voices that called his name, and a bone-chilling cold that seemed to seep into his very soul. By morning, the officer had fled, his skepticism shattered, and he warned others to stay away from the accursed place. In the modern era, paranormal investigators have made numerous attempts to document the supernatural activities within Kuldhara. Armed with advanced equipment, cameras, audio recorders, and electromagnetic field detectors, they have sought to capture evidence of the paranormal. Their findings have been both compelling and terrifying. One investigation team recorded unsettling audio clips, featuring voices that seemed to come from nowhere, whispering in an ancient dialect. Footage from their cameras showed shadowy figures moving through the village, only to vanish upon closer inspection. Some team members reported sudden drops in temperature and the sensation of being watched by unseen eyes. One investigator, known for her rational and scientific approach, left the village abruptly, refusing to speak of what she had experienced. Despite the eerie evidence, skepticism persists. Some argue that the phenomena can be explained by natural causes, the creaking of old structures, the play of light and shadow, and the effects of suggestion on the human mind. Yet, the atmosphere of Kuldhara, thick with an almost tangible sense of unease, defies simple explanations. The legends of Kuldhara continue to evolve, fed by each new account and investigation. Rumors of the curse and attempts to lift it have persisted through the years. Some believe that a powerful ritual performed by a pure-hearted soul could break the curse and bring peace to the restless spirits. Others argue that the curse is eternal, a punishment that cannot be undone. In recent years, local villagers and spiritual leaders have made attempts to lift the curse through various rituals. They have performed cleansing ceremonies, offered prayers, and left offerings in the village temple. Yet, each attempt has been met with the same eerie silence, the same sense of being watched by unseen forces. The curse of Kuldhara remains unbroken, its grip as strong as ever. One particularly poignant tale speaks of a descendant of the Palawal Brahmins, a young woman who returned to Kuldhara in search of her ancestral roots. She spent several nights in the village, performing rituals and praying for forgiveness on behalf of her forebears. Her final night there was marked by a violent storm, and she emerged the next morning, her face pale and her eyes haunted. She claimed to have seen the spirits of her ancestors, trapped in an endless loop of suffering, and vowed never to return. The village of Kuldhara stands as a haunting reminder of the past, a place where the boundary between the living and the dead is thin and fragile. Each visitor, each investigator, adds their own chapter to its dark history, but the true nature of the curse remains elusive. In the next chapter, we will delve into the theories and speculations that attempt to explain the enduring mystery of Kuldhara. Join us as we continue to explore the shadows, seeking answers to the questions that have haunted this village for generations. searching for rationality. In the heart of Rajasthan, Kuldhara remains a silent enigma, its cursed legacy enduring through the ages. While the tales of spirits and curses have captured the imagination of many, there are those who seek to unravel the mystery through rational and historical analysis. This chapter delves into the possible non-supernatural explanations for the village's sudden abandonment and examines the broader historical context that might shed light on the events of that fateful night. Historians and researchers have proposed several theories that attempt to explain the exodus from Kuldhara without invoking the supernatural. One of the most plausible explanations revolves around the harsh environmental conditions of the Thar Desert. Water scarcity has always been a critical issue in the region. The Paliwals, known for their advanced irrigation techniques, might have faced an insurmountable drought that rendered their agricultural practices unsustainable. As their wells ran dry and their crops withered, the villagers could have been forced to leave in search of more hospitable lands. Economic factors also play a significant role in this theory. During the 1800s, the region was under the rule of various princely states, each demanding taxes and tributes. The Paliwal Brahmins, though prosperous, were not immune to these pressures. Increased taxation, combined with the deteriorating environmental conditions, might have created an untenable situation, pushing the villagers to abandon Kuldhara in a desperate bid for survival. Another theory posits that the migration was a strategic decision to escape a human threat. Historical records indicate that the region was rife with conflict and raids from bandits and invading forces. Salim Singh, the notorious minister of Jaisalmer, is often cited in local lore as a key antagonist. While the tale of his obsession with a village girl may be embellished, his reputation for tyranny is well documented. It is conceivable that his oppressive policies and relentless demands drove the villagers to flee en masse, preferring the uncertainty of the unknown to his brutal rule. Archaeological evidence supports some of these theories. Excavations in and around Kuldhara have revealed signs of a sudden departure, pots and utensils left behind, personal belongings abandoned in haste. Yet, there is also evidence of systematic dismantling, suggesting that the exodus was planned and organized rather than a panicked flight. This points to a community that chose to leave, rather than one driven out by a sudden catastrophe. Despite these rational explanations, the atmosphere of Kuldhara and the persistent stories of its curse continue to fuel speculation. The psychological impact of the village's eerie silence and desolation cannot be discounted. The human mind is wired to seek patterns and explanations, often filling gaps with stories of the supernatural when confronted with the unknown. The fear and anxiety experienced by visitors could be a product of suggestion and the powerful narratives that have surrounded Kuldhara for generations. Moreover, the historical context of the time provides a backdrop of uncertainty and upheaval. The 19th century was a period of significant transition in India, marked by the decline of traditional power structures and the encroachment of British colonial rule. Communities like the Paliwals were caught in the crosscurrents of these changes, facing both economic hardship and social disruption. The abandonment of Kuldhara could be seen as part of a broader pattern of migration and displacement during this turbulent era. As we piece together these historical and environmental factors, a more nuanced picture of Kuldhara's abandonment begins to emerge. It is a story of survival, resilience, and the enduring human spirit in the face of overwhelming challenges. While the tales of curses and spirits add a layer of mystery, the reality might be one of pragmatic decision-making and adaptation to harsh realities. In the final chapter, we will reflect on the legacy of Kuldhara and the lessons it holds for us today. Join us as we conclude our journey through the haunted corridors of history, seeking understanding and closure for the enigmatic village of Kuldhara. Echoes of the unseen. The fog had rolled in thick that night, clinging to the windows like spectral hands, leaving cold trails of condensation. As the clock struck midnight, a profound stillness descended upon the old mansion. It was a silence so deep, one could almost hear the whispers of the past echoing through its ancient halls. David sat alone in the dimly lit study, the flickering candlelight casting eerie shadows on the walls. He had spent the better part of the evening poring over old journals and manuscripts, desperate to uncover the truth behind the inexplicable events that had plagued them for weeks. Each page he turned seemed to hum with an unseen energy, as if the very words held the power to summon the spirits of the past. Outside, the wind began to howl, rattling the window panes and sending a chill down David's spine. He shivered, pulling his sweater tighter around his shoulders. He knew he was not alone in his quest for answers. The locals had their own tales to tell, stories of ghosts and otherworldly beings that had haunted these lands for generations. The first account he came across was that of Old Man Hargrove, the village elder. His tale was one of sorrow and dread, passed down from his great-grandmother. According to her, a young woman named Eliza had once lived in the mansion, a century ago. She was said to be a radiant beauty, full of life and laughter. But her life was cut tragically short when she was found dead in the mansion's rose garden, her face twisted in a final, horrified scream. The cause of her death remained a mystery, but her spirit was said to wander the grounds, her mournful wails echoing through the night. David's breath quickened as he read the description. He had heard those very wails on more than one occasion. Could it be Eliza's spirit trying to communicate, to warn them of something? He moved on to another story, this one from Mrs. Abernathy, the village baker. Her grandmother had often spoken of the Shadow Man, a dark figure seen lurking in the corners of the mansion. No one knew who he was or where he came from, but his presence was always a harbinger of doom. People who saw the Shadow Man were said to suffer from terrible nightmares, their minds slowly unraveling until they met a grisly end. David rubbed his eyes, fatigue and fear gnawing at his sanity. He couldn't shake the feeling that he too was being watched by unseen eyes. The temperature in the room seemed to drop suddenly, and the candle's flame sputtered, as if an invisible hand had tried to snuff it out. He glanced at the next manuscript, a collection of ghost stories compiled by the local historian. It contained a particularly chilling tale of a spectral carriage, drawn by phantom horses, that would appear on stormy nights. The carriage was said to be driven by a headless coachman, his eyeless gaze forever searching for his lost head. Those who were unfortunate enough to witness the carriage were said to be spirited away, never to be seen again. David's heart raced as he remembered the distant sound of hooves on cobblestone he had heard during the last thunderstorm. The memory of that night sent a jolt of fear through him, making him question the boundaries between the living and the dead. As he continued to read, the stories grew darker and more malevolent. There was the tale of the cursed portrait, a painting of a stern-looking man whose eyes seemed to follow you wherever you went. Legend had it that the man in the portrait had been a cruel landlord, whose spirit had been trapped within the canvas as punishment for his wicked deeds. Anyone who looked into those eyes for too long would fall under his malevolent influence, driven to madness and despair. David couldn't help but glance at the portraits hanging on the study walls, each one seeming to leer at him with a sinister, knowing gaze. He quickly looked away, his mind racing with a mixture of fear and fascination. He found himself drawn to the final manuscript, a leather-bound book that seemed to pulse with an eerie light. It was the journal of a former resident of the mansion, a man named Jonathan Crane. Crane had been an amateur occultist, obsessed with contacting the spirit world. His journal detailed his descent into madness as he attempted to summon and control the supernatural forces he believed inhabited the mansion. The last entry sent chills down David's spine. Crane had written of a ritual gone horribly wrong, of a presence so dark and powerful that it defied description. He spoke of voices whispering in the darkness, promising him forbidden knowledge in exchange for his soul. The final words were scrawled in a frantic, almost illegible script. They are here. They are always here, watching, waiting. David slammed the book shut, his hands trembling. He could feel the oppressive weight of the mansion's history bearing down on him, each story a thread in a web of fear and mystery. He knew he had to find a way to uncover the truth, to understand the malevolent forces that seemed to be closing in on them. As he sat there in the flickering candlelight, the shadows seemed to grow darker, the air colder. The mansion groaned and creaked as if it were a living, breathing entity, its secrets waiting to be uncovered. David took a deep breath, steeling himself for the challenges ahead. He knew that the path to understanding would be fraught with danger and uncertainty, but he also knew that he could not turn back. With a final resolute nod, he rose from his chair and extinguished the candle. The darkness swallowed him whole, leaving only the faint echo of his footsteps as he ventured deeper into the unknown, the specters of the past, his only companions. Shadows of Kuldhara. The morning light filtered through the heavy drapes of the mansion's drawing room, casting an ethereal glow on the dust motes that danced in the air. David sat at the ancient wooden table, surrounded by scattered notes and open books, his mind heavy with the weight of the discoveries he had made. He had spent the night reading and rereading the accounts of the supernatural, the ghost stories, and the sinister history that seemed to pulse through the very walls of the house. But amidst all these tales, one mystery loomed larger than the rest, the enigma of Kuldhara. David leaned back in his chair, his eyes drawn to the map on the wall. Kuldhara, the cursed village, was marked with a small red dot, a reminder of the dark legacy that still haunted the region. The story of Kuldhara was one of whispered legends and fragmented memories, a tale passed down through generations, each retelling adding another layer of fear and ambiguity. Kuldhara had once been a thriving settlement, home to a prosperous and content community. But one fateful night, every inhabitant vanished without a trace. The village was left deserted, and a curse was said to have been placed on the land, dooming anyone who dared to settle there. To this day, the village remained abandoned, a ghostly echo of a time long past, its streets silent and overgrown with weeds. David couldn't help but feel a chill as he thought about the stories he had heard. Locals spoke of strange lights flickering in the windows of the empty houses, of eerie whispers carried on the wind, and of shadows that moved of their own accord. It was said that the spirits of the villagers still roamed the streets, their souls trapped by the curse, unable to find peace. As he reflected on the enduring mystery of Kuldhara, David was struck by the profound sense of loss and tragedy that permeated the tales. The villagers had been driven from their homes by a powerful and malevolent force, their lives torn apart in an instant. The curse had not only affected them, but had cast a long, dark shadow over the entire region, its influence reaching far beyond the village itself. The more David thought about it, the more he realized that the curse of Kuldhara was not just a story of supernatural vengeance. It was a reminder of the fragile nature of human existence, of how quickly life could be upended by forces beyond our control. The villagers of Kuldhara had been caught in the grip of something they could not understand, something that defied explanation and reason. Their fate was a stark warning of the dangers that lurked in the unseen corners of the world, waiting to strike without warning. David's thoughts turned to the mansion itself and the strange occurrences that had plagued him and his friends. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was a connection, that the dark forces that had driven the villagers from Kuldhara were somehow linked to the malevolent presence in the house. The whispers, the shadows, the chilling cold, all seemed to point to an unseen hand at work, manipulating events from the shadows. As he sat there, lost in thought, David felt a sudden surge of determination. He knew that he had to uncover the truth, to understand the nature of the curse and its impact on the village and beyond. He couldn't let fear and uncertainty hold him back any longer. There were answers to be found, and he was determined to find them, no matter the cost. The clock chimed, breaking the silence of the room, and David rose from his chair. He gathered his notes, carefully folding them and placing them in his bag. With a final glance at the map, he turned and made his way to the door. The journey ahead would be fraught with danger and uncertainty, but he was ready to face whatever lay in wait. As he stepped out into the cold morning air, David couldn't help but feel the weight of the past pressing down on him. The shadows of Kuldhara loomed large, their presence a constant reminder of the mystery that awaited him. But he was no longer afraid. He was resolved to confront the darkness, to bring light to the secrets that had remained hidden for so long. With each step he took, the mansion seemed to sigh, as if relieved to see him go. The path ahead was unclear, shrouded in mist and mystery, but David knew that he could not turn back. The echoes of Kuldhara called to him, their voices a haunting melody that beckoned him forward into the heart of the unknown. As he disappeared into the mist, the mansion stood silent once more, its secrets safe for another day. But the story was far from over. The shadows of Kuldhara would continue to watch and wait, their whispers growing louder with each passing moment, until the truth was finally revealed. David's journey led him deeper into the heart of the unknown, where the boundary between the living and the dead grew ever thinner. The path to Kuldhara was a winding one, marked by desolate landscapes and an eerie stillness that seemed to swallow sound itself. As he approached the abandoned village, the air grew colder, the very atmosphere charged with an unseen presence. The ruins of Kuldhara stood as silent sentinels, the crumbling walls and empty houses bearing witness to the tragedy that had unfolded there so many years ago. David walked through the deserted streets, his footsteps echoing in the oppressive silence. Each house he passed seemed to whisper its own tale of sorrow and loss, the shadows within flickering with an almost sentient awareness. He paused at what remained of the village square, where a gnarled tree stood twisted and bare, its branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. The wind rustled the leaves, carrying with it faint whispers that seemed to swirl around him, filling his mind with fragments of forgotten memories. David set up camp near the tree, determined to spend the night in the heart of the village. As darkness fell, the air grew thick with an otherworldly tension. The moon hung low in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the ruins. He lit a small fire, the flames casting dancing shadows that seemed to move with a life of their own. As the night deepened, David's thoughts turned to the villagers who had vanished without a trace. He imagined their final moments, the fear and confusion that must have gripped them as they fled their homes. He could almost hear their voices, a chorus of sorrow and despair that echoed through time. Suddenly, the fire sputtered, and the shadows around him seemed to grow darker, more substantial. A cold breeze swept through the square, carrying with it the unmistakable scent of decay. David's heart pounded in his chest as he felt a presence behind him, a sense of being watched by unseen eyes. He turned slowly, his breath catching in his throat. There, standing at the edge of the firelight, was a figure shrouded in darkness. Its form was indistinct, a mere silhouette against the night, but its eyes glowing with an unnatural light bored into him with an intensity that sent chills down his spine. The figure spoke, its voice a low, haunting whisper that seemed to echo from the depths of the earth. "You seek the truth, but are you prepared to face it?" David swallowed hard, his mouth dry. "I need to know what happened here. Why did the villagers leave? What is the nature of the curse?" The figure moved closer, the shadows shifting and swirling around it like a living entity. "The answers you seek lie beyond the veil of the living world, in a place where few dare to tread. The villagers of Kuldhara were caught in the grip of a dark force, a curse born of anger and despair. To understand their fate, you must confront the darkness within yourself and be willing to sacrifice all that you hold dear. David's mind raced, the figure's words echoing in his ears. Was he truly prepared to face such a challenge? To risk everything for the sake of the truth? He knew that turning back was no longer an option. He had come too far, and the shadows of Kuldhara would not rest until their story was told. With a deep breath, he nodded. "I am ready." The figure extended a hand, its touch cold and unyielding. "Then come and let us cross the threshold together." As David took the figure's hand, the world around him seemed to dissolve into darkness. He felt himself falling, tumbling through an endless void, the whispers of the villagers growing louder, more insistent. And then, just as suddenly, he found himself standing in a place that defied description, a realm of shadows and echoes, where the past and present intertwined in a dance of light and darkness. The figure released his hand and gestured to a doorway that seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly light. "Beyond this door lies the truth you seek. Enter, and you will see the final moments of Kuldhara and the true nature of the curse that binds it." David stepped forward, his heart pounding. As he crossed the threshold, he was enveloped in a blinding light, the world around him dissolving into a kaleidoscope of memories and emotions. He saw the villagers, their faces etched with fear and determination, as they fled their homes. He felt their anguish and despair as they realized they could never return. He witnessed the moment the curse took hold, a dark force sweeping through the village, binding their souls to the land in an eternal torment. And then he saw something else, a flicker of hope, a glimmer of redemption. The curse, though powerful, was not unbreakable. It was born of human emotions and could be undone by the same. As the vision faded, David found himself back in the village square, the dawn light breaking over the horizon. The figure was gone, but its words lingered in his mind. He knew what he had to do. The villagers' souls could be freed, the curse lifted, but it would require a great sacrifice. David steeled himself, ready to face the final challenge. He would need to confront the darkness within himself, to channel the strength and compassion needed to break the curse. With a sense of resolve, he began the ritual, drawing on the knowledge he had gained from the journals and manuscripts. He spoke the incantations, his voice strong and unwavering, as the air around him crackled with energy. As the final words left his lips, a blinding light enveloped the village, and David felt a profound sense of peace wash over him. The whispers of the villagers grew faint, and he knew that their souls were finally at rest. The curse was broken. Kuldhara was free. David stood alone in the village square, the morning light casting long shadows over the ruins. He felt a deep sense of accomplishment, but also a lingering sadness for the lives that had been lost. The journey had changed him, had revealed the depths of human resilience and the power of compassion. As he turned to leave, he glanced back at the village one last time. The shadows of Kuldhara were no longer a source of fear, but a reminder of the enduring spirit of its people. Their story would not be forgotten, and neither would the lessons he had learned. David walked away, the echoes of the past fading into the distance. The journey was over, but the impact of Kuldhara would remain with him forever, a testament to the power of the human spirit and the mysteries that lay just beyond the veil of the known world. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the heart of darkness, into the shadows of Kuldhara. Until next time, stay curious, stay brave, and remember, some mysteries are meant to be unraveled.